I will call the October 23rd Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call. Sure.
Alderperson Ackley. Here. Alderperson Decker.
Here.
Alderperson Feldy.
Oh, excused.
Thank you. Alderperson Filicki-Pineski. Here. Alderperson Heidemann. Here. Alderperson Mitchell. Here. Alderperson Perella. Here. Alderperson Ramey. Here. Alderperson Rust.
Present.
Alderperson Salazar. Here. There are 9 present.
Alrighty. I am looking for approval of the minutes for the Committee of the Whole from October 16th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty. Oh, I missed the Pledge of Allegiance. I am sorry. This is Sam for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Something felt wrong.
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry about that. Do we have anybody for public forum?
No one this evening.
Nobody for public forum. All right, before we get to item number 5, I would like to welcome City Administrator Bradley to his first Committee of the Whole for this budget process.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5 is for discussion only. Discussion regarding the understanding of Sheboygan Municipal Code Section 18-1. Alder Perella.
First of all, I want to thank Chair Rust to accept my plea of adding at last minute this item on the agenda. I really appreciate it because I think that an open discussion is always positive. Also, I want to thank Director Kruger and City Attorney Majuris to send us an email clarifying and answering most of my questions on that. I have just a couple of questions and one comment. One comment is, unfortunately, I did not have the understanding that a COLA would not be applied to those positions which we, by ordinance, made $15 to start with. I perhaps am the only one, and I'm sorry for that, but I had not understood that. So I kind of, and that's unfortunate, took for granted that COLA would apply. Besides that, because I understand through the email that was sent that COLA will not be applied, so the cost of living adjustment will not be applied to those employees, at least for some time. So my question is, just for the sake of the record and the understanding of everybody, for how long COLA will not be added to these employees, or to those positions, I should say, and also what happens to the new employees that come on board at that level?
All right, Alder Perella. The cost of living adjustment will be reflected on an employee's income statement when they have reached the grade, at which point they are no longer subject to the $15 an hour minimum wage. So what I mean by that is if they are at a grade that would pay them $14.70, and the following year through their step increase in cost of living adjustment, they would be higher than $15. They would then see that higher wage.
May I? Yep. So I'm looking for an example of one position and for how long that will not happen. So we have only 3 positions here. I think that we could have an example at least.
Certainly. The easiest, so we have 3 positions that are subject to the $15 an hour minimum wage. Grade 1 position is a library page. Grade 2 is the library cleaner and the police crossing guard positions. If we were to take the grade 1 position, when the employee transitions, if an employee were to transition this year from step 8 to step 9, they would see an increase in their income. The step 8 currently is $14.94, and the step 9 is $15.12.
So will these employees, and that's, thank you, Chair, will these employees proceed in the steps and just be stuck at the current wage without the COLA implementation addition or not?
That's correct, because at step one, a library page would normally receive $12.96 an hour, and then each year they would have a step increase and a cost of living adjustment. But because of the minimum wage, for those first 8 steps, a library page is receiving $15 an hour. And if I misspeak at all, Director Krieger, please step in.
I just want to add the comment that, see, we keep referring to what would have been if they started at 1249, or what would have been if they started at 1420, but we remove those, we replace them. So I don't think that this was made as clear as it should have been from the beginning, because I understand the concept of it, and again, because we keep referring to what was in the beginning, but that has been replaced by ordinance. So perhaps even the ordinance should have reflected that then there would be no additional further adjustments. And again, this is a comment because I understand the difficulties of change it at this point. Although I would recommend that we revisit, not for the purpose of the budget, but that we don't put this to bed, but revisit it later. And I will talk to in other situations possibly, because I'm thinking that this should be revisited.
I would just like to add, I think that the way we could change that, Alder Perella, would be to, if we made another pay scale where that $15 an hour was the minimum, but now because we just added that as the minimum, it's still going off that original pay scale. I think that is the issue. Alder Salazar.
I think you answered a little bit of my question, so thank you, Chair, but I'm just trying to get a clarification of like, how would we have known I guess, as a council, we were sort of putting it forward that this was going to be the minimum wage for it, but I don't know how we would have known that it was sort of going to flatline the employee for up to, if it's step 8, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's several years, right? We're talking 8, 9 years?
Correct, for
Correct.
that grade 1 position, yes. For the grade 2, the transition occurs between step 3 and 4.
Okay. And so I guess what my question is how would we have been informed with that information when we were creating the minimum wage? Is that information that we should be posing? Because it feels a little bit like I don't want to say it, like it feels like, oh, we found a loophole, and so like here's where we're going to leave it at. And instead, I would rather have us work towards making sure that we were moving everybody that way, because I felt we were pretty consistent in how we wanted to move the $15 minimum and that's the support behind that on council. And so I guess my question is how would we make sure this misstep didn't happen in the future? Or is it that we just amend it and then we adjust it so that it doesn't matter about what the mistake is? Now we found it and we're going to try to work to fix it.
Director Krieger.
So I can't speak exactly to why maybe council was not fully understanding the intent or what ended up happening in the ordinance. I do have communication that I received back about a year ago that specifically stated that employees would be locked in at $15 until the pay scale passed them up. It was written, my understanding is that it was written that way purposefully because we didn't want to break the scale right away when it had just passed several weeks earlier. It had been brought to the city attorney who helped draft the ordinance. And from there, that's how it ended up where it did. I was not involved in the conversations that helped draft that ordinance, but the reason that I believe city attorney, and he can correct me to any of you if I'm speaking out of turn, but my understanding was that the wage scale was not replaced with $15 on every step or the control point or minimum, because it would have had to recalculate the entire scale above in order to avoid the compression issues. So that was why it was written in a way that it was separate completely from the pay scale and the comp plan. But I can't speak to the disconnect between the $15 minimum and not having an adjustment after that.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Ramey.
Thank you. Couple of comments. One, and this is, of course, repeating what has already been said, but I want to say it. We made that $15 an hour with the understanding that it was for a fair cost of living. And so I just feel that it was maybe manipulated or what have you, to say that they cannot have the cost of living increase for 8 to 9 to 10 years. Is it fair for me to ask if it was the former city administration that made this call? Okay. I understand that we're under the gun right now with it coming to budgets. I will echo what Alder Gracia said, that we can't let this just stay. I think this is very obvious to at least some of us, if not all of us, that it is not, this did not happen with transparency, and it's just not fair. And so I believe that if we don't do a change now on it, then we have to get ahead of it and make sure, because I do understand that we have to go back to the wage study, and all of that has to be reconfigured, and it's not just Director Krieger clicking a button. Completely understand that, but it can't go ignored. And I also agree with Amanda that these situations moving forward can't happen like this. That we have to have complete transparency and speaking to 10 people in a language where we all fully understand, because these are lives in our community that are being affected by this. Thank you.
Director Krieger?
I just want to bring a couple items forward for council to consider when going through this process moving forward. There are 2 cleaners at the library who already are over that $15. So one thing of consideration would be, do they get the COLA? They're going to be off step on the plan potentially forever then. So just an item of note. And then we would also want to look at, if a new hire comes in, is that person again back at 15, or is the new minimum going to be with that COLA adjustment? So just items that I want to make sure in all efforts of transparency and clarification, to make sure that we are having those conversations ahead of time before that comes back.
Alder Filipki-Pineski.
Thank you. Our finance director said it much more eloquently. I remember being in the trenches for this, and if my colleagues will recall, we had no human resource director as we were going through our wage study. So I don't know that it's a matter of it wasn't transparent or it was transparent. I think everybody was doing the best they could at the time we did it, when we did it. And I, for one, was very concerned about compression, and if we raised the minimum at the base, and it's just not a matter of the calendar and the spreadsheet moving up. It's a matter of our entire budget moving up if we had adopted that particular program. So again, I think we can bring it back, but for what we did when we did it, I think it was understandable, and we can bring it back.
Alder Salazar.
I want to follow up to what Caitlin was just sharing. So Caitlin, are there other, minus this step and this minimum wage piece, are there other employees that won't be receiving a COLA based on what steps they're in?
Yes, there are individuals who have been redlined through the compensation program, so they were over the top of their scale at the time of passing of the compensation program, so they still will be at that same wage until the scale catches up.
And is that sometimes years?
Yes, I know that the scale caught up to 3 people, I believe, that were originally not, who were originally redlined, but I believe that there's at least 2 to 3 more people who are still there. I think it will catch up to them in a couple years, but I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think it's important for us to understand that the COLA does stretch across the whole steps, the staircase, whatever you want to call it. I think that's important for us to get an understanding and have a holistic view of what this means, right? Because right now we're focusing on this tail end, which is something we clearly care about, but I also want to understand like how many employees are not receiving COLA, whether they're redlined or not moving.
If I may. Yep. One additional consideration that I'll just throw out there, if all the council is in agreement, you could look at not changing the plan, the steps with the calculation on every step, but you could look at placing the individuals higher into the grade that they are on. So let's say for 2024, the current draft schedule has a step 1548, 1566, 1584, they could be placed on one of those steps, but also in effort of transparency, they would max out sooner. So that's just another item of consideration.
Sorry, follow up.
You're fine.
Each position maxes out at a step? Yes.
Yes, so at some point you will reach the top step of the scale and you can't get an additional step, but because the scale is adjusted every year for the cost of living adjustment, they would still receive that cost of living adjustment. It just wouldn't be the extra 2.5% or 1.25% on their wage for the step.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Alder Filicki-Pineski.
Thank you. And those steps are based upon their job description and their responsibilities. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Thank you.
One point of clarification, the grades are based on job description and qualifications. The steps are based on tenure.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Alrighty, seeing none, we will move on to item number 6. RO number 51-23-24 by City Plan Commission, to whom was referred direct referral RO number 45-23-24 by Finance Director, submitting capital improvements program requests for the years 2024 through 2028, referring the CIP request to council. Director Krieger.
I get to talk a lot today. So everybody had an updated draft document in front of them on the dais with the most recent, as of I think about an hour and a half ago, requests for capital improvement program. I just wanted a quick run through them just to make sure that I point out the changes that were made from the last program draft in order to be very clear on what has happened. Again, if then there's changes, that would be council making a motion to change. So the first item, going through expenditures, I will say the revenues all flowed from the expense side. So I'm going to go through the expenses. If you have questions on revenues, please let me know. So the first change that occurred was the Uptown Social Gymnasium construction. That was changed. The project is still within the plan. However, it is going to be funded by donations as it stands right now in 2024. The next project is that had changes is under Parks and Forestry, the ADA infrastructure improvements for citywide program parks. After discussion with Director Biebel this morning, there is outstanding amounts that have not been spent yet from previous years. So we're looking to spend those amounts before we allocate additional dollars to the project. Additionally, city buildings, the police department has a decrease. The priority for the police department was the garage floor resealing and fixing the holes in there, so that is included in there. And then also the amount for lighting supplies. So we took out the amount that was for the full contract in order to replace all the lights at once. So it is now the amount for just the supplies to replace lights as they occur. Additionally, the city building's placemaking lighting has moved from 2024 to 2025. We're looking at other funding sources for that project, so we have pushed it off for next year at this point in time. Then we get to skip a page, and underneath Streets Engineering Division, the Stormwater Management Plan, number 61, that is also foregoing a year based on conversations with Director Biebel. There is funding still available within the Capital Improvement Project Fund that can assist with some of the projects in that area. The next item is the Traffic Division LED street lighting upgrades. It was $630,000 and we brought it down to $330,000. That again was due to conversations with Director Biebel and looking at what projects we can actually fulfill next year. And lastly, nope, not lastly, wishful thinking, I guess. Motor Vehicle Fund, the vehicle replacement is decreased $300,000. That is due to the fund already replacing a garbage truck that was purchased as a used vehicle a few weeks ago. So it was removing one vehicle from the plan for next year. If we then go to development funds, there is the removal of both the stormwater pond and the engineered fill and compaction in TID 18. We are looking at different agreements with developers in TID 18. So at this point in time, we're removing those requests because we have potentially other areas to look less of the capital side and more as potential incentives. So we are removing those at this time. And that is it. So those are the changes that were made. It did decrease. I did hear that council was concerned about the amount of debt that was going to be issued. So I do want to point out that the amount of debt requests for 2024 has decreased slightly. The one thing I do want to point out when it comes to debt is that a significant amount of it is related to those TID projects that are in the development section. I believe it's an increase of approximately $3 million in just TID-related debt. So the amount for GO debt is pretty consistent from last year's, or I should say this year's 23 to 27 plan, but it is increasing due to those TID projects. I also, before I turn back over the mic, want to just make sure that I bring up that, of course, Administrator Bradley's first day was today, so he got to look at this quite a bit today. However, he has stated, and he can speak on his own behalf, but he has stated that in order to have a true capital improvement plan that he feels confident and comfortable with and really dives into both fund balance usage, debt issuance, all of these items, that it would take about a year to get done. So we're looking at the approval for 2024 with the understanding that 25 through 28 are truly going to be used as a planning tool for us to get going on the next year's plan right away so that we are ready to go for the 25 to 29 plan. With that, I open any questions.
Thank you, Director Krieger. Do we have any questions, comments? Alder Filicki-Pineski.
Thank you. I would just like to say thank you to Director Krieger, who I'm sure has stayed up late at night and has had a lot of headaches, but I appreciate your fine-tuning what we saw last time and fine-tuning that one from the time before. And additionally, I've asked for additional information to compare and contrast, so thank you for that too. And I second that. And I'm delighted to hear that we have planning for capital improvements in 25 and 26 based on these numbers.
Thank you, Alder Filicki-Pineski. Alder Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. I will admit Alder Filicki-Pineski's comments were the beginning of mine as well for everybody who was putting so much time and effort into this today and in the recent past. I just wanted to say thank you for all of that. We very much hope that will not be required next year. I won't walk everybody through my same list of items from the last time around. I haven't had enough time to fully digest for a full opinion, but based on what I've seen, it does look like we've made a lot of cuts to get this in a position that's a bit more tenable for the long term. So I do appreciate that, and I understand that we're focusing on 2024. I think I did say this last time too, but just because of how many times the question, is it in the capital improvements plan, comes up, I guess I would both encourage council to remember, if it is truly our position, that we have not approved everything all the way forward in this, absolutely, without a doubt, being in future years' plans, and that it's more of a starting point for future planning. Admittedly, I will probably still be a no on this, just because I'm not particularly comfortable with that aspect of it, but I do fully understand the perspective, and if we had also pulled the bridge, I would have been a yes tonight. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Mitchell. Any other discussion? We will take a roll call vote for recommendation to council. Yeah, we will.
Okay. I move to recommend to council
To adopt that
to adopt the amended capital improvements program list, and with the,
as presented.
as presented, with the addition that the future capital improvement will be looked at.
Alderperson Ackley. Alderperson Decker.
Aye.
Alderperson Flicky-Peneski. Alderperson Heidemann. Alderperson Mitchell. Alderperson Perrella. Alderperson Ramey.
Aye.
Alderperson Rust.
Aye.
Alderperson Salazar. There are 8 ayes, 1 no.
That will be recommended to Common Council. Item number 7, resolution number 73-23-24 by Alderpersons Mitchell and Flicky-Peneski, establishing the 2024 budget appropriations and the 2023 tax levy for use during the calendar year.
Alder Rust, there was an error identified in the resolution.
Okay.
So I'm going to be asking that the body amend the resolution to reflect that the budget hearing will be November 6th instead of today.
Okay. Do we have to vote on that?
Make a motion to amend the resolution to that. Okay. I will recommend as Attorney Panteras has stated.
Thank you.
How's that?
Second.
All right.
Second.
And that'll be a voice vote, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes aye. Ayes have it. All right, now on to item number 7. Resolution number 73-23-24 by Alderpersons Mitchell and Flicky-Peneski, establishing the 2024 budget appropriations and the 2023 tax levy for use during the calendar year. Director Kruger.
Thank you. The budget has, I am bringing forward an amendment that I'm hoping that someone on council will support. There have been a couple errors that have been found in the budget, including the calculation for our police services agreement with the Village of Kohler. We went through, myself and the attorney and finance individual went through the calculations, and there was an error in the contract and part of the formula, so that has been corrected. in the budget, so it requires a decrease of revenue for $40,000. In addition, to try to make up that gap, I did a review of all of the salary and benefit projections that have been included and recognize that there are several positions that either have been filled or were budgeted to a higher FTE count than what was in the table of organization. That includes fire department, the DPW admin, and the library. So that is also in my budget amendment that I am requesting. In addition, because once we did fix those items, there was a little bit of a gap. So we are asking that there are 2 one-time equipment purchases that were removed from the operating side to the capital funding, but we have the funds that we can cover those. So that is the rollover flexi flatbed applicator and the plotter. And lastly, now that Administrator Bradley is here today, I had the opportunity to ask him if he, up until today, there was no contingency built into the budget. Historically, that has been funded with one-time fund balance use. So in addition to the corrections that I just stated, I am asking for a increase to the contingency budget for 2024 of $500,000, which would be funded with fund balance from general fund.
Thank you, Director Krieger. We will open this up to discussion. Oh. Discussion or a motion, I guess. So we'll go with Alder Decker.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend the amendments that Director Krieger has brought forth.
We're just moving to accept what Director Krieger just did.
Yeah, but you're all looking at me, but I'm like, what is he saying over there? And you guys asking me to. It's a lot on the table.
Yeah. So right now, we're just asking if the amendments that Director Krieger just asked for,
Okay.
if
you're,
Dean made a motion to approve those amendments right now. We're not asking for anything else right now. After that,
approve the
then we can be open.
It's,
So, I believe the Finance Committee Chairman
Right.
is going to read some amendments of where the account is coming from. Is that my correct understanding?
okay. Let him do that.
Yes. it is.
I will withdraw my motion.
If I can piggyback on the parliamentary inquiry, do we have the actual resolution in front of us? Has that motion been made? I know there was talk of amending the date in the resolution, but I didn't.
We don't have the actual resolution, we just had the amended date before the body.
Don't we need the resolution before we can amend it?
Yes. So it would be a motion to recommend to council to adopt the resolution, and then adopt and then a motion to amend the resolution, and then a motion to recommend as adopted.
That would also include the amendments that I would have to make also.
In that case, I would move to recommend approval to the Common Council.
Can that be voice? All those in favor? Nope. Just an amendment?
Now you would make.
All right, is there a discussion on this? Alder Mitchell.
I would move to amend the resolution to reflect the following changes. Please bear with me. A decrease of $40,000 to account number 101473215. A decrease of $32,636 to account number 101220520,340. A decrease of $1,757 to account number 101220520,350. A decrease in the amount of $6,447 to account number 101310510,110. A decrease of $400 to account number 101310520,310. A decrease of $93 to account number 101310520,310. 520311. A decrease of $445 to account number 101310, 520320. A decrease of $27,197 to account number 255511510110. A decrease of $1,686 to account number 255511520310. A decrease of $394 to account number 255511520311. A decrease of $29,277 to account number 255411100. An increase of $29,277 to account number 101411100. An increase of $25,000 to account number 10133154027. An increase of $5,000 to account 1013105602555. An increase of $5,000 to account number 6303105602555. An increase of $5,000 to account 630493000. An increase in $500,000 to account 101141810101. An increase of $498,945 to account 101499999. And that is the end of the amendment.
Do we need? Alrighty. No vote for that. Vote on that amendment? Well, do we have discussion for that? Yep. So Alder Mitchell, and then we'll go Alder Perella.
Just my discussion on the amendment would be to point back to what Director Krieger had shared with us before I said a lot of numbers many times.
Yep. Thank you. Alder Perella.
So just to understand, these changes are so I'm not able to follow by the numbers. So how do I decide, how do I evaluate these changes listed in this fashion?
So I can give you a copy of the motion, if that would help. But this
is what Director Krieger asked for.
Yeah, this is
initially.
the request that I had spoken on, where we have some corrections due to errors that were found during the review process.
Very good. So this list reflects exactly what you said before.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, take a roll. All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Chair votes aye. Ayes have it. We'll look for further amendments. Any further discussion on this item? Yeah. Well, just this in general. Yeah, so Alder Decker.
All right, this is the first of a couple of amendments that I want to bring forward. This first one is a motion to, we had in the budget a floater for the Department of Public Works that was a Parks Department floater. Through discussions with DPW, they felt the need was more important for a mechanic. So this is not a dollar-wise change. This is just a motion to change one position. And I know I support this because of that. So I'll make the motion. We'll see what's. This is to move up a streets person to mechanic. This is going to be a bunch of numbers also. I make a motion to increase by $88,618, account number 730474960. Increase by $3,000, account number 7349300. This one says increase also. Increase by 61,209, account number 730399-510110, increased by $3,795, account number 730399-520310, increased by account number $888, account number 730399-520311, increased by $4,223, account number 730399-520320, increased by $10,018, account number 730399-520340, increased by $485, account number 730399-520350, increased by $11,000, account number 730399-560255, decrease by $55,474, account number 10133151011, decreased by $3,439, account number 1013315203110, decreased by $804, account number 1013315203111, decreased by $3,827, account number 1013315203220, decreased by $10,018, account number 10133152030, decreased by $485, account number 10133152030, increased by $740, account number 1016053581150, increased by $740, account number 1012405381150, increased by $740, account 1013105381150, increased by $30,362, account number 1013315381150, increased by $740, 1013442-538150, increased by $4,443, account number 1013445381150, increased by $17,771, 1013625381150, increase by $2,221, account number 1014915381150, increased by $16,290, account number 1015205381150.
Director Krieger.
To translate all of that, so all of those numbers are really required to move the floating streets position to the mechanic in motor vehicle fund. It does two pieces really, because it is not all in the general fund. It wasn't just as easy as increasing and decreasing within the same fund. So we had to actually increase the revenue in the motor vehicle fund and increase the expense as well for the service charges in order to reallocate the amount in the expense for the floating position to the mechanic. So it took a lot more accounts than you would anticipate, because again, you have to do the salaries, FICA, Medicare, WRS, health insurance, dental insurance, all of those accounts are separated. So that is why the amendment was so long.
Thank you. Alder Felicki-Pineski.
Thank you. So of all those numbers, and I'm relating to Alder Perella's observation before.
We still are waiting on a second
Wait
on
a
Alder
second.
Decker's motion before we can have discussion on
I'll
that.
second.
Okay,
Okay.
now
thank
you can,
Thank you. Okay, all of those numbers from all of those accounts, and I understand that the original observation was, we don't need a park floater, we need a mechanic. Okay. Is it a net neutral swap?
The amendment as presented is balanced, so yes, it is an even swap at this point.
And it's an even swap from personnel to personnel, and it doesn't take lights or stop signs or tar or anything? Is it staff money to staff money?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alder Salazar.
I forgot my question. Wait, no, I remember. Okay. Great question, but is the mechanic specifically just within that department, or will be supporting all the other organizations? Is that feedback someone can give me?
Director Biebel.
The mechanic supports all the motor vehicle equipment within Public Works Department. We also maintain for fire and other small equipment used throughout the department as a whole. So speaking with the superintendents, they felt if we were going to have a position that was going to be added to the TO, the mechanic position has a much broader reach for the entire department in terms of the needs versus just the parks area. And they felt that this was a much higher priority because of that, in terms of making sure that equipment is available to all the divisions in a timely and operating condition.
So outside of your department, your division, it'll also support the fire
Yes, it
division
would.
as well?
Yes.
And police, or no, that's separate?
Not police, not the
Okay.
squads.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. I believe Alder Flicky-Pineski may have already asked this question. I was just going to ask if both the originally proposed and now the replacement position were the same grade on the scale?
They are different grades on the scale. However, there was a gap in the motor vehicle fund in order to make up that gap. So it is slightly different, but it is made up with already the fees that are charged.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Mitchell. Alder Perella.
Yeah, I would just ask Alder Decker if he could articulate on the rationale behind it.
Alder Decker.
Well, the rationale behind it is basically what Director Biebel had said, that the Department of Public Works came back to me and said, you know, if they were getting this position, that this would be the position that they would be most beneficial to them and to the city. They have been operating kind of short for mechanic wise. They like I said, they do maintain the fire trucks also, and so they have taken that on without any additional staffing. So this would help them immensely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Decker and Perella. Alder Filicky-Pineski.
Thank you. I'm having a bit of a hard time with this because first we got asked for a parks floater that I am now understanding is a different grade. It's a different grade on the pay scale. And then we moved, a couple dozen accounts. It feels a little bit like a bait and switch, you know? If I put something in the budget and then I can flip it, I can get what maybe I wanted at the beginning. Now, that probably does an injustice to the Public Works Department because if you need a mechanic, you need a mechanic. So I'm not understanding basically why the parks floater was there and now it got swapped at the last minute to a mechanic.
Alder Decker.
This one also, the request for the mechanic was also in their requests. This was, when the choices were made, this choice was, we, as leadership, we picked, this kind of went through, this is what kind of went through. And without really asking, DPW probably should have said this, which is the more critical thing that you needed. So this is, I guess, would be more on us as choices.
Would Director Biebel like to expand on that?
No, I think Alderperson Decker indicated it very well. We had several positions within the budget for requested for funding, for future funding. Out of those, several requests, only one was funded, and it was chosen the parks. But after that was determined, the staff met and deliberated and decided, if we're going to get one position, it needs to be prioritized, and it should be the mechanic. That serves the department on a greater good, has much far-reaching impact to the department in terms of maintaining and keeping our fleet at optimal support levels, which becomes very critical during the winter operations when the staff is working many hours overtime and doesn't have the coverage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Biebel. Alder Ramey.
Thank you. Does this affect any other department? If we do this, is someone else not getting something? I just don't want to vote on this and then we get to another thing. It's like, well, because we voted on that, now someone else. How does this affect everything?
The way this is going to work is if you're making a motion to add a position, you have to also, in that same motion, get that money from somewhere else. You can't just add.
Somewhere else in your own department?
No, I'm going to request that if anybody further has motions on the budget, instead of just rambling off a bunch of numbers to start with, please make it be clear where you're taking that money from and where you're putting it before you start rambling off numbers. So we all have a good idea, and then we will discuss that after that motion is made. So, Director Biebel.
Yeah, I was just going to add that this change is solely within the Department of Public Works budget. So we had a position in one area of the budget. We're deleting that and reallocating that funding for the mechanic position. So this was all within the department proper.
All right, thank you, Director Biebel. Any other discussion on this item or this amendment? So all those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Chair votes aye. Ayes have it. All right, continue on. If there's any other discussion on this item. Alder Decker.
Okay, this was one that may not be popular. This is something else that's, and I'm not going to read, as you said, I'm glad you're asking me not to read the numbers off, at least until we come to consensus. What I would like to propose is adding a floater, basically building maintenance, and it's more so building maintenance is what this position would be. Reclass the arborist, reclass maintenance workers, and remove one firefighter and the oven duct cleaning from the budget. Should I expound on my reasoning, or, okay, I will, okay.
Yep. Well, actually, first, I want you to read your numbers and then we'll discuss it after. So read your numbers first and then we'll take it up for discussion. So make your motion.
Okay.
Just get it done with it.
Okay, increase by $55,474, account number 101160-510110. Increase by $3,439, account number 101160-520310. Increase by $804, account number 101160-520311. Increased by $3,828, account number 101160-520320. Account increased by $10,000, account number 101160-520340. Increased by $485, account number 1016052035. Increased by $4,492, account number 10152051011. Increased by $279, account number 10152052030. Increased by $65, account number 1015205203111. Increased by $310, account number 10152052030. Increased by $12,452, account number 101 101-331-510-110, increased by $772. Account number 101-331-520-310, increased by $181. Account number 101-331-520-311, account increased by $1,035. Account number 101-331-520-320, decreased by $5,000. Account number 101-220-550-110, decreased by $53,412. Account number 101-220-510-110, decreased by $774. Account number 101-220-520-311, decreased by $10,212. Account number 101-220-520-320, decreased by $10,018. Account number 101-220-520-340, decreased by $485. Account number 101-220-520-350.
Alder Decker, I would like to just point out that motion is not balanced, so that cannot be sent.
Excuse me, there was also one other, also they add to it, the Director of Public Works, there's $13,732. That would be, the Director of Public Works has informed me that he would work with the Finance Director to
I'm
balance
looking
that.
for motions that are currently balanced. It's out of order. We will move on if there's any other amendments. Alder Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. I guess just slightly more commentary. The request that the resolution was amended to change the date that was listed for the public hearing.
Yes.
I believe that amendment was done before we had the resolution on the floor, so we should probably.
Well, I'm saying his motion is, I'm motioning it out of order, but we can, that's still fine.
Right, I'm suggesting that amendment be remade now that we have a
Sure.
lull in between two of them.
All right.
I do not off the top of my head remember what the actual date for the hearing was.
Okay.
November 6th.
I would move to amend the resolution to change the hearing date listed to reflect November 6th.
Okay. Second. Do we vote? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Any other motions, discussion on the budget? Seeing none. Liz, is this, can we roll call this? Can we roll call this for moving? Sure. Okay. We will do a roll call vote for moving it to, Alder Filicki-Pineski.
Thank you. I have been thinking about our contribution to the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation. That is $100,000 a year. The county likewise gives them $100,000 a year. And last year, there was some discussion about, are we getting enough benefit for what we pay for them? And I was here a long enough time ago to know that the Development Department did not hire an economic development sole person because that revenue went to the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation. Last year, I did not vote to take down their revenue because I didn't think it was quite appropriate. However, I would like to decrease the $200,000 that's there by $25,000 and to kind of put them on notice that initially the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation was for private enterprise to support economic development and not government to support economic development. So I don't know where I go with that, but.
Well, the mayor has some comments on that.
That's not the correct amount.
Okay. Do you know what the correct amount is?
So we pay the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation $100,000.
Pardon me.
Not 200.
Yeah,
200.
pardon me.
Just for clarification.
Sorry, you're right, $100,000. both governments supply 200, we supply 100, and the county supplies 100. So I would like to take our portion from 100 to 75,000 this year.
Do you have another part of your motion to balance it out?
I don't, because I didn't know I had to do that.
Why would you need to balance it if we're reducing?
Yeah, it doesn't have to go anywhere.
The chair of the committee has asked that all motions regarding the budget tonight be balanced motions.
So I get to add $25,000 somewhere?
Oh, yeah. Director Krieger.
That'd be great.
Short answer is yes, you can if that is your motion. I do want to just point out that only 50,000 of that payment comes from the general fund, and there's other funds that come from the TID districts and other places. So if you want to decrease by 25,000, I would need clarification that it would be general fund. But then yes, our budget policy here states that we have to pass a balanced budget, which is why we would require something to offset the decrease of expense.
Okay. I would choose that we remove the 25,000 from the general fund, and then I would ask our Director of Development where she might choose to put the 25,000 because it was development funds.
Director.
Thank you for the question. So it is the goal of the Planning and Development Department to create. So one of the things that's in your packet is position creation. It is our goal to create an economic development staff position. So I would, budgeted though about a TIF. Could it come from there? Okay. Sorry. So I would encourage the council to consider utilizing that funding to offset some of that position cost.
Sounds okay with me.
Mayor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want, as a board member and city representative to the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation, I know we had some conversations at our last committee, the whole, regarding this as well, too. I will say that just from my perspective, and Director Biebel is also on the board too, so I guess I'd like to call on his perspective as well. But I think the SCEDC has been much more active over the last year and has gotten the message as well. Again, that's up for conversation to the council. And we've gotten a lot of significant leads that I know council is aware of, as well as the redevelopment authority, in terms of some projects that they have queued up in the pipeline for us as well. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, if you could recognize Director Biebel as well, I would appreciate just some additional context for this conversation.
Director Biebel. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo what the mayor has said. This past year, the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corp. And that $100,000 that the city contributes has, in my opinion, this past year been very well spent. Given that we haven't had a city administrator for the past year, as well as a long period without a development director, we've had great dialogue with them in terms of the need to really focus on the city and be a partner. And we've have some significant developments because of that partnership. So I do feel, though, with Diane now in Director of City Development in place now, the need for an in-house economic development person is going to be a priority, and it's going to be money well spent for us. I'm just a little worried about the timing, given the pending developments and the relationship that we have ongoing and some of the sensitive developments. And so I think maybe could be a topic that we could forecast and give next year with the Sheboygan County Economic Development, that, council is concerned about this investment. We need to consider, in the future, how does that look? But I think just as part of this budget at this stage, knowing where we're at, I think that might be a little abrupt. And I think giving them some advanced warning of where we're headed would be best served, especially given that they have made great efforts this past year in terms of supporting the city on economic development.
Mayor Sorensen.
Thank you, and I just remembered another point too. So we have our weekly interdepartmental development meetings as well, and the SCEDC attends those meetings weekly. So they've been very present, and so additional on that, they meet with the larger interdepartmental group, and then we also have an additional meeting weekly on Wednesdays as well. So I guess happy to entertain any additional questions regarding the SCEDC.
Do you have any? I'll give it back to,
Go ahead.
okay. Alder Ramey.
I just have one comment and one question. To your point, Director Biebel, I do remember being here a year ago, and it was my first time, and so, wow. But I do actually recall you bringing that up and bringing up your concerns last year. So I respectfully disagree that it's abrupt. And then for you, I would ask, could you just expand on it a little bit more? I don't feel like I have enough information of why you want to take some of that funding away.
Thank you. One of the observations that our city attorney has made over the years, not just recently, but over the years, because the SCEDC receives $100,000 from the county, $100,000 from the city, and they're also housed by the county. I don't know what kind of relationship that is. They are likely subject to open meeting laws because they get the majority of their revenue through public funds. I think that's an issue. Now, I don't know how much other revenue they raise, but when it was initially set, we were to give them funding money to start the development process, and it was to have been private enterprise so that we'd have the three-legged stool. And it's gone on for a number of years, so I'm concerned. And maybe this is not the forum to have that discussion. I think it's certainly the time to have that discussion. And yes, we have made some wonderful strides with development over the years, and I can't help but wonder if the city would have made more strides sooner if we had had one dedicated, nothing but economic development person in the field at all times.
Thank you, Alder Flicky-Nesky. Alder Salazar.
This is really for the mayor. Can you tell us how long we've been paying this $100,000 contribution?
From their inception, and I believe it's been 2012, it's about 10 years.
Easily.
2011, 2012.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I am looking for a motion to recommend. Well, she never got a second for it.
Oh.
Yeah, she never declared it, and then there was discussion about it, so we kind of went out of order.
So, didn't I move?
Yeah, so there's no second, so that's out of order, so that is no longer up.
I didn't move?
No, because there was no second, and you didn't have it balanced. You just had $25,000 and then discussed, then there was questions about it.
So, can I make a motion now?
Yes.
I move that we remove $25,000 from the SCEDC budget
And put it where?
and put it in the Department of Economic Development for the city of Sheboygan. If you need a budget line, I don't have that.
Director Krieger.
I call on Assistant City Majerus, City Attorney Majerus. Do we need account numbers for this?
Yes.
So I need account numbers, Alder Flicky-Nesky.
How am I supposed to know that?
I know.
This is like silly. How are we supposed to know that?
I would recommend reaching out to the city attorney office or Director Krieger or the mayor prior to, if you want to make amendments to these. Mayor Sorensen.
Yep, just to follow up on those comments, and in every budget presentation as well, we did put follow-ups if folks are planning, to give us a heads up, but then also work with the finance department to get the correct account number. So we have noticed that. Those are in the PowerPoint slides as well, too. So we did ask alders to.
As an example, Alder Decker, when I put him out of motion, he did have all of his numbers. He did reach out to DPW and Caitlin, I assume, to get those numbers when he tried to make his motion. So that would be an example of that.
I think as we move forward, it needs to be very clear what the rules are and the expectations of these meetings. Because there are quite a few of us here who have full-time jobs, right? And so we're doing the best that we can with this, but some of this discussion is happening very quickly in real time. So if that is the expectation, we need to have that very clearly outlined to us as alders, that like, it was presented to us as like, yes, we need this information. If you want, you guys can reach out to us, but more of like, if you're going to make a change, you need A through Z in order to do that.
Alder Decker.
I would say I would concur with Alder Salazar on this. I think we need to have, I granted some of the things that were done in last minute. I think we also need a little bit of levity on this. So.
Alder Flicky-Pineski.
Thank you. I'm also a little bit concerned about the council members are expected to move into the nitty-gritty details down to the dollars and cents per budget line. At the same time, we are dependent upon our department heads to do their job, and our job is to set policy. But this particular issue, it's now, oh, you don't get to set the policy, you have to give us the detail and the finite stuff. So it feels like we're between a rock and a hard place. And I do agree that we should set policy. I gave a rationale for removing 25,000 and even said where to put it. I think that's where my job begins and ends. I could be wrong, and it might be legal beagle stuff, but I concur with my other colleagues. If that's the case, then be prepared for all of these alder people to be with all of the department heads asking nitty-gritty, what I consider day-to-day management things of you. And I don't think that's an appropriate use of either the council or our very competent department heads. Thank you.
Attorney Majerus, is there a reason why we need each line item?
The desire to have the account information is so that staff can be sure that they are doing exactly what the members of the council are looking for, and so that the balance can, or the budget can be balanced with those changes.
Alder Decker.
I guess I question why, if we, like in my example, we have, the director, Beeble has offered to amend his budget. Why we're stuck right now at this point. We can't change it. I don't think that's fair or right. That's what we're here to do, to change it. If some details have to be made, because we're not approving the budget per se, we're sending the budget forward. We're not approving the budget, we're approving it next week. If we, there's time, this is why this meeting occurs, so that we can make changes to the budget, we can make those changes, and I think that those changes should be allowed to be made.
The only thing I will say, Alder Decker, is that I'm fine with us making changes. I just want it to be balanced. I don't want it to be stated, I'm going to work with Director Krieger this upcoming week, and then we only have, on Friday, we only get a look at it over the weekend, and we aren't quite sure of the consequences of those actions.
I would say that if you bring it forward, this is, I would say that this is more than enough time to be able to look at that again. I just think that this is a chance to do it right. I mean, this is, that's why we're here, to do it right, to make the changes now. We can't make changes later on. We make changes now. And I believe that, a discussion between a director and another director to make a change, that bringing it forward is appropriate.
I understand that, but I'm saying that if, let's say your shortfall was to the point where, let's say it's $60,000, for example, that's a very big number, and I don't think that gives alders enough time to see the consequences of moving that money from one place to another in that period of time.
The case of this shortfall was $13,000, not $60,000.
I'm just using that as an
Exactly. But again, when we have a director that's willing to make changes to his budget, to make things work, to do the right thing, to do it right, I think we should listen to those directors.
Well, I would also like to echo that all directors should be working with each other regardless, and hashing out between them, because as Alder Salazar said, and Filippi Pineski, that they're all competent and they all can work together, and they should all come to a consensus for giving and taking, especially when it comes to these changes.
Well, exactly. That's the point. The point is they should be able to do this. And so we have directors that are competent, that they can work together. Why don't we let them work together to do this?
I understand that, Alder Decker, but from what I understand from the motion you were going to try and make, it was going to affect another department, and the other department wasn't quite understanding why that was going to happen to them. And I'm saying that maybe that should be an internal discussion between the director heads, so that they can figure it out, so that they both can be like, yes, this is okay, or this is not okay.
But I was not also allowed to bring my motion as far as my rationale for that to this body. And I think that is unfair.
Mayor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments regarding the budget in general, and then just a few points. Short answer is we have to have a balanced budget. That's state law, state statute. So there's a lot of state statute that guides the budget process. And also to Attorney Filippi Pineski's comment, and I don't want to put Attorney Majerus on the spot as well, but it's been the preference and legal advice from the attorney's office for the legal beagle speak in terms of having the account numbers, because previous councils historically in the past have made broad motions that have gotten us into some financial kerfuffles. So we want to, we want to make sure that we're accounting properly and not giving, that we are being very specific in terms of what the council is directing staff to do. We have fixed a lot of the accounting systems that we've had for the cities, and it became more financially accountable that way. So that's the justification that I know some of the legal beagle experts were requesting as well. So points for that as well too. I agree with Alder Decker's comment as well. So I think, and I maybe would want to call on Attorney Majerus as well, if there are particular items that there's a sense of the council on some of those items, a sense of the council resolution, if my commentary is correct on that, on some of these points. Because I think that, and just for the record, we're not finalizing the budget tonight. This is the committee of the whole. This is where we still get, this is part of the process. Sausage is made through a long, extensive, process, and I think understanding some of the budget priorities, we're not done yet. There's still time for folks to continue to work on this. So the ink isn't dry just yet. So we're still working on it. We're still going through the process. But I think if there's particular policy items that council's still interested in working on the budget, there's still conversation, even here tonight, to have those policy directions and to hammer those out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, I echo what the mayor said with respect to this. Tonight's meeting isn't final. We could do a sense of the council resolution, gauging appetite for various changes to the budget, and then directing staff to develop the account information that could then be presented at the November 6th budget meeting by the Common Council. we wouldn't want to simply have, we would want the direction to staff to be very specific. So for example, taking Alder Fulicki-Paneski's motion as an example here, if she said that she wanted to move to, she said, whereas for all of the reasons previously set forth, I would like to resolve that the council supports reducing the funding to SCEDC by $25,000 and redirecting that funding toward an economic development position and directing the finance director to work with the city administrator and the director of development and planning to effectuate that desire. That would be a motion that could be brought to the body today. And then if we had majority support for that, then staff would have clear guidance on how to prepare for the next meeting.
Thank you. Alder Decker, I will entertain your motion under that regard.
We'll make this motion.
I'm sorry, but I'm just going to let him make his motion
Okay.
quick. Alder Decker.
Okay. Thank you, Alder Rust. I make a motion to add.
Does he need does he need the numbers if he does that?
If he does what? If
If
he
he
does the
makes-
sense of the council
Yeah, I
resolution?
I just want a sense of the council resolution.
If you have you had the numbers, but they weren't balanced, is that right?
That's
But you
correct.
could get a sense of, to balance.
You could get a sense to balance that. You could, how does this work? This is such a rare thing. You would say, whereas I desire to make these changes and I direct staff to work with the city administrator to effectuate those changes for the next council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would do a vote on that.
Do I have to do all the numbers again? Like
No.
I did? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think everyone here thanks you.
All right, Alder Decker.
Okay, I make a motion that we consider adding a floater to the building maintenance. The floater would be a building maintenance person. Reclassify the arborist, reclassify the maintenance workers, remove one firefighter and the oven duct cleaning. Can I show you my rationale, or do I
Yes,
wait?
you can share your ration.
Okay.
We don't need a second for that, correct?
Well, this is all part of his motion,
So-
right? Because it's a motion for a
Right, okay,
resolution.
yeah,
So
so you
you
may
have
give
your
your-
whereases and your
Okay.
now therefores.
Whereas, okay. With the Department of Public Works taking in the last several years the maintenance of most of the city buildings, including City Hall, the Police Department, all fire stations, and transit, I believe it is critical that we have the staff in place to meet those needs. Beyond our staff, our buildings are our greatest assets, and the citizens of Sheboygan entrust us to care and maintain them properly. Furthermore, I feel that the promotion of the 4 staff members makes our street maintenance crew and forestry crew more efficient and flexible. I reluctantly supported the 2 additional paramedic firefighter positions. To add relief to the fire department staff, but I cannot support a 3rd addition when there are so many additional needs to the city. I question also the need of the $5,000 for the oven duct cleaning when I believe that staff can be done in-house or by maintenance. As far as the rationale by the fire department that out-of-town transfers are a reason for this need, I feel we should only be doing these in emergency situations. Adding additional wear and tear to our aging fleet of ambulances, I have not seen any cost-benefit analysis to doing these transfers, especially given that we are taking away from a private business. I believe that we should be focused on first responders as a fire department. I've also believed that the DPW maintenance position should be, in the future, be funded similar to the IT department in charging each entity for the service. This is not just a DPW position that touches every department in the city. It touches City Hall, the police department, the fire department, senior center, library, transit. Along with wastewater and DPW, they all benefit from this position. Both of the DPW additions, the additional ones benefit all departments. That's all my motion.
Do you need a second?
So we would need a second on that.
Yeah,
Oh, and then I would direct with the budget that was written or spoken earlier, there's a $13,732 difference. I would direct the city administrator to work with the director of public works and finance director to make this balanced.
looking for a second. Going once, going twice. That item is not up for discussion. Alder Salazar.
My commentary wasn't actually anything to do with what Dean was saying. I was actually going to toss it back to the mayor in saying, I heard what you're saying about the budget and sort of the precedence about making sure it's balanced, and I can absolutely support that. And as you're saying, the legal jargon and that it makes a big kerfuffle that we've gotten into the past, all those words you use, and that we need that legal jargon. I hear you on that, but like, none of us are lawyers, and so we use the team to help us support on those things. So like, if those are the standards moving forward, it is pretty clear that we're gonna need more time from your office to really make sure that we are appropriately bringing the things that we need to this meeting, to these meetings. And if I'm hearing you correctly, since the ink is not dry tonight, that we can still, if there isn't anything that, if we have other questions, we can still talk to you about putting some new ink on it for the 6th, is that correct?
Attorney Majerus?
I know neither one of you want to answer that question, but I just want to get.
She buzzed in first.
I didn't buzz at all. Yes, the ink is not dry. Yes, changes can be made to the budget. The sense of the council resolution is a way to achieve that policy goal by also establishing whether there's majority support for that change, so that staff knows that there is majority support behind this directive, that they should prepare this for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I did not understand that, so that's good clarification.
Okay. Alder Flicky-Pineski.
Thank you. This is the first I've heard of a resolution called a sense of the council.
Me too.
Great, okay. So, I have been, as my colleagues know, I have been lobbying for a full-time communications specialist. I have been lobbying for 3 years, as long as I've been here. And when I go, I'm told I need all those budget numbers and all those accounts and all, and the part I can do is, you need at least two of your colleagues to agree with this. I can ask two of my colleagues to agree. If I bring forward and I will probably not do this for this budget because we got enough irons in the fire, but I would put on notice our brand-new city administrator. I will be in his office in a month, okay? So,
She's not joking.
I'm not joking. So if during the year, I'm still stuck on the policy versus the detail, and we are the policy makers. So if throughout the year, we get this sense that this is more important to our constituency than this is, or we see that there's a gap among all of the departments we have, could any time during the year we introduce, it's the sense of the council that we kind of want you to go this direction, and when it comes to budget time, we're going to watch? Is that what you mean by all of this?
Well, I think that is one option through this tool.
Okay.
From what I understand of a sense of the council resolution is it's gauging the temperature.
Perfect.
You're setting a policy preference.
Okay.
You hold the vote on it to gauge the temperature.
Okay.
If you have a majority, you know that the body supports your policy preference.
Okay.
And staff can be directed with specifics into how to implement that policy.
Perfect. Our biggest policy decision is the budget. It's the bottom line. So I would be willing to do a bottom line and let everybody else do all the kerfuffles, figure out where it's got to come from. And I'm hearing that we can't do that anymore because it's too broad, it's too open, and it's too big of a scope. Is that accurate?
Could you rephrase your question?
If we get a sense of the council, okay, my understanding is the council's biggest tool is the budget. That is our authority. So the budget comes once a year in a smaller time frame. So throughout the year of the council, can we do sense of the council items that come up? And the example I used was the communications person. Are we able to do a sense of the council and then direct that it be developed into the budget for the coming year?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Director Krieger.
I also just wanted to point out that budget amendments are also the job of the council. So if you were not interested in waiting till next year for this position, that would be something that could get brought forward. And I believe that is when you would want to make sure that you have other alders that will sign off on it. And at that point, the attorney's office forwards me any resolution that has any financial information in it. So it would have already gotten put in there if you have the support of other alders to get it on the agenda.
Thank you, Director Krieger. I appreciate that.
Alder Flick-Beneski, did you want to do your motion
Make
for
a
this
motion?
SCEDC?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And it was what she said earlier.
All right, so,
Okay.
and stop me if I'm misspeaking here.
Okay.
But for clarity, the motion would be for the reasons previously stated on the record. I would move to resolve that $25,000 be reduced from the SCEDC contribution and be redirected to the Department of Planning for use as an economic development staffing, or however you want to phrase that. And then we would have a vote on that.
Thank you. So moved.
So that was not very so.
That was good.
Okay. How do I make this more specific? So the motion would be to resolve to reduce the SCEDC fund contribution by $25,000 and to redistribute that $25,000 into the budget for the planning department for use in an economic development staffing position, and directing the city administrator to work with the finance director and the director of planning to effectuate that.
So moved. Casey.
Do we have a second?
Nobody wants to.
Do we have a second?
That's okay.
Going once, going twice. We won't talk. That item is tabled.
Thank you, everybody, for the discussions.
Alder Perella.
Thank you, Chair. I've been trying to interject for a while, unsuccessfully. I actually wanted to echo what, just briefly, what colleague Philip Panesky said, that I also felt that when we come up with, for whatever our rationale is for a proposed change, and I followed instructions. So I was told you can come to us during this week and provide and ask for what is your proposed change. But then it looks like that there is not enough. I cannot come, if I come up with a proposal or how to fund that change, I will not have the full capability of all the options I have. So I think that we will need help to come up with the options. So, and I'm referring to a change that I have proposed officially through an exchange via email on a CIP item. And I understand the reasons that that cannot be done the way that I proposed it. However, then we would need help ahead of time. We would need help in identifying ways for that to happen. So I agree, in other words, I agree that not always we will be able to come up with, although our rationale may be strong, we cannot always come up with the numbers necessarily. So we need to, I feel that we need that support from the city staff to do that, instead of sometimes we feel stuck because, yes, what we propose is unattainable with our solution, but then we have not the support to come up with a solution.
Mayor Sorensen.
Thank you, Alder Russ. So I just kind of want to go back to a broader conversation in terms of how we get here. Yes, the budget is a process that the council goes through towards the end of the year. However, when we talk about large-scale priorities, you know, these are conversations that alders need to get a sense of throughout the year and throughout the session. You know, not that we're necessarily just throwing items on the agenda, you know, at the last minute. But, you know, I'll give an example of some pet-friendly initiatives. So these are ongoing conversations that we have throughout the year, that we get a general sense of the council, working with staff, planning them out, having committee meetings, bringing up ordinances and conversations at the committee level, so that we, throughout the entire year, that we get a general sense of what's going on. I think a lot of folks know that a lot of the heavy lifting gets done at the committee level, when we're talking about different policy initiatives, when we're talking about different resolutions or things coming down the line. We all know that we get continuous calls. The number one conversation that we get from our constituents is regarding roads. And these are a lot of continuous conversations that we have at the public works level. And these are continuous conversations that we have throughout the year, especially when it comes to capital improvements. And to the, Director Krieger's point too, and I'm kind of jumping around here as well, we do budget amendments throughout the year as well too, if council members are familiar. Projects come up, costs change, different priorities happen. Yes, that's true, and those should be level and budget and balanced as well too. So I guess, you know, especially, and I guess I just want to empower throughout the budget, not budget process, but the entire council process, that if you have certain policy initiatives, that you do bring them up at the committee level. You know, if it's sidewalks, bring them up at the Public Works Committee meeting, get a better understanding about that. If it's ambulance response time, you know, I know the chief does quarterly updates at LHPS meetings, so that elders do just get a better sense of the content that builds and builds the process in terms of the priorities that the department heads and their staff spend a significant amount of time behind the scenes working on throughout the entire year and planning them out. So those are just some commentaries I wanted to add as well too.
Thank you, Mayor Sorensen. Alder Perella.
Yeah, I just want to add that, for example, the sidewalk program that I was referring to, I actually brought it up last year even. So, but nothing moved anyway from there. But I understand. So I want to have a confirmation on the fact that also amendments are possible, not only on the budget, but also on the CIP during the year. Perfect. Thank you.
The answer was?
Yes. Any other discussion? Alrighty, I am looking for a motion to recommend to the Common Council to adopt the resolution as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes aye. Ayes have it. Item number 8, next meeting will be scheduled when needed. Motion to adjourn. Motion made, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned at 7:09.